First Contact and Betrayal. Captain Sarah Chen adjusted her United Earth Federation dress uniform as she waited for the massive doors of the Galactic Confederation's council chamber to open. The neural translator at the base of her skull hummed with a familiar warmth, Earth's most advanced technology ready to convert the dozen alien languages she would encounter inside. "Remember, they'll try to intimidate you first," came the voice of Commander Jackson Reed through her earpiece. "It's what they've done with every emerging species." Chen nodded almost imperceptibly. The psychological brief on the Confederation had been thorough. An alliance spanning thousands of star systems, comprised of species that had been traversing the cosmos when humans were still figuring out agriculture. The doors parted silently, revealing a chamber designed to overwhelm. The ceiling stretched hundreds of meters overhead, shimmering with holographic star maps showing the vast territories under Confederation control. The council members themselves sat on elevated platforms, physically and symbolically looking down upon petitioners. The human ambassador approaches, announced a multitonal voice that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. Captain Sarah Chen of Sol System, Third Planet, representing the self-designated United Earth Federation. Chen detected the subtle linguistic jab in self-designated, meant to reinforce humanity's junior status in galactic affairs. She maintained her measured pace toward the central podium, refusing to appear rushed or intimidated despite the 16 pairs of alien eyes tracking her every movement. High Counselor Xelvin, a being of mercurial appearance whose skin rippled like liquid metal, occupied the highest position. "We welcome Earth's first formal representative." Xelvin's voice flowed like his physical form. "Though we find it presumptuous that a species barely 5 decades into faster-than-light travel requests full diplomatic recognition." A wave of clicking sounds, the Confederation equivalent of derisive laughter, passed through the chamber. Chen had been warned about this, the casual dismissiveness, the assumption of superiority ingrained in their cultural framework after millennia of dominance. Instead of responding immediately, she activated the holographic display embedded in her podium. A three-dimensional representation of the Milky Way galaxy materialized, highlighting the massive Confederation territories in gold and Earth's minuscule explored region in blue. "Esteemed Council, I thank you for this audience. Humanity recognizes its modest position in this vast community of worlds." She paused, noting the slight relaxation among several council members. Exactly the reaction she had anticipated. However, she continued, expanding a section of the display to show technological development curves. "What we lack in territory, we make up for in adaptation rate. In 50 years, we've progressed from our first FTL prototype to developing independent innovations in quantum computation, gravitational manipulation, and biosynthetic interfaces." The Varine representative, an insectoid being known for scientific expertise, leaned forward with newly focused compound eyes. "These development rates exceed documented patterns for all known species." "Precisely," Chen agreed. "Humanity doesn't seek diplomatic recognition based on territory or military capacity, but on our potential as trade partners and scientific collaborators." She gestured, changing the display to show Earth's rare resource deposits and unique biological compounds. "For instance, our planetary biosphere has developed several enzyme chains with properties unknown in Confederation pharmacology. Early tests suggest applications for treating neural degeneration common among the Tellurian species." The Tellurian counselor, a crystalline being who had remained dismissively silent, suddenly straightened. Chen continued her presentation methodically, addressing each council member's specific interests, information gathered through years of covered observation and careful analysis. By the fourth economic proposal, 3 councilors had requested private audiences. By the 6th cultural exchange initiative, even Selvin's fluid form had stilled, his attention fully captured. What none in the chamber realized was that Captain Chen wasn't merely negotiating. She was gathering intelligence with every interaction, every reaction, cataloging weaknesses in the Confederation's seemingly impenetrable political armor. As the session concluded, Chen caught a glimpse of Selvin conferring urgently with his aides, his mercurial form darkening to a gunmetal gray. She maintained her diplomatic smile, but inside felt the first prickle of concern. Something in the High Counselor's posture suggested he recognized what humanity truly represented, not a military threat, but a fundamental challenge to a system of carefully calibrated dominance maintained for eons. That night, after sending her official communications to Earth, she recorded a private message with quantum encryption that even the Confederation's advanced monitoring systems couldn't detect. "Admiral Zhao," she spoke softly, "activate Protocol Watchful Eye. I believe we'll need contingency measures sooner than expected." 3 months later, the crystal spire of the Confederation Embassy on Proxima Centauri IV caught the system's binary sunset, fracturing light into kaleidoscopic patterns across the grand reception hall. Chen studied her reflection in a polished surface. 6 diplomatic missions had been unexpectedly productive, culminating in tonight's ceremony of formal recognition. "I don't like this," Commander Reed muttered, adjusting the ceremonial sidearm that Confederation protocol insisted was purely decorative. His combat implants had been scanning the room continuously, mapping exit routes and security positions. Selvin was too quick to offer the formal recognition ceremony. Chen nodded slightly. "I know. Representative Teller warned me during our private meeting that several council members are uncomfortable with our progress." "Then why attend?" Reed's hand instinctively checked the emergency beacon concealed in his formal uniform. Because refusing would confirm their suspicions, Chen's eyes tracked a group of Confederation security officers repositioning near the main entrance. Besides, this is the perfect opportunity to map their security protocols. The neural implant at her skull base was doing far more than translation. It was collecting data on every system it encountered, building a comprehensive analysis of Confederation defenses and communication networks, information that might prove vital if diplomacy failed. A melodic tone reverberated through the chamber, signaling the ceremony's commencement. The assembled dignitaries, representatives from over 70 worlds, moved to their designated positions with practiced precision. "Captain Chen," Zelvin's voice flowed as he approached the central dais. "Your presence honors us. Few species have demonstrated such remarkable aptitude for galactic diplomacy." Chen detected the slight hesitation, a linguistic marker that her translation implant flagged as potential deception. She maintained her diplomatic smile as she ascended the steps to the ceremonial platform. "The honor is humanity's, High Counselor. We look forward to a productive relationship with the Confederation." As she took her position at the center of the platform, Reed's voice came through her earpiece, tense and urgent. "Sarah, their security grid is reconfiguring. Energy signatures shifting. This isn't standard protocol." Before she could respond, a subtle vibration passed through the floor beneath her. Then stillness. Too much stillness. The ambient sounds of the gathering had ceased entirely. Chen attempted to turn toward Reed, but found herself immobilized, held in place by an invisible force field. "A remarkable adaptation of stasis technology," Selvin said, circling her frozen form. The pretense of diplomacy had vanished from his tone. "It selectively targets non-Confederation biosignatures, quite useful for dealing with disruptions." Chen could move only her eyes, watching as similar fields had ensnared her entire diplomatic team. Only Reed appeared partially mobile. His military-grade neural overrides fighting against the stasis effect. "The Council has deliberated on humanity's position in the galactic order," Selvin continued, withdrawing a ceremonial blade from its scabbard, a curved golden implement that gleamed under the chamber's lights. "Your acceleration curve threatens stability. Your adaptability defies control. Your potential concerns us." Chen found she could still speak, though barely. "The Federation will interpret this as an act of war. The Federation will understand its proper place," Selvin replied. Behind him, ceremonial cameras activated, their feeds connecting to transmission points across the Confederation and to the human diplomatic vessels in orbit. "This demonstration will ensure appropriate humility from Earth." With deliberate slowness, he raised the blade. Chen's eyes remained fixed on his. The blade descended with ceremonial precision, piercing her heart. As consciousness began to fade, Chen's gaze remained locked on the transmission cameras, knowing her final act of defiance would reach Earth. In that moment of calculated brutality, Selvin sealed the Confederation's fate without realizing it. Across the chamber, Commander Reed broke through enough of the stasis effect to activate the emergency extraction protocol. Even as his body fought against the paralyzing field, 4 diplomatic staff managed to reach the emergency shuttle bay during the ensuing chaos, carrying with them the complete neural download from Chen's implant and irrefutable evidence of the Confederation's treachery broadcast across the stars. Operation Starfall. The diplomatic shuttle UEF Hermes limped into Earth's orbit, its hull blackened by Confederation weapons fire. Emergency thrusters fired erratically, compensating for damaged stabilizers as Earth's orbital defense platforms tracked its approach. Inside Olympus Station's medical bay, Commander Reed winced as regenerative fields sealed the plasma burns across his torso. Admiral Elena Zhao watched the medical procedures with a controlled expression that betrayed none of the rage boiling beneath. They broadcasted it, Reed said, his voice hoarse from smoke inhalation. They wanted Earth to see it, wanted us to see it. Zhao nodded once. The footage is being contained for now. Global panic won't help our response. Sarah knew, Admiral. Reed gestured toward a quantum data core resting on a nearby tray. She had me carry a backup of her neural implant data. Said it was standard protocol, but it wasn't. Zhao picked up the small device. Captain Chen suspected this might happen. She sent me coded warnings in her diplomatic updates. The Admiral's personal communicator chimed with an urgent signal. Federation Security Council is assembled. They're waiting for your testimony, Commander. Within the station's secure conference chamber, representatives from Earth's unified governments sat in stunned silence as the unedited footage of Chen's assassination played on the central display. Reed noted the physical reactions: white knuckles, clenched jaws, the unmistakable posture of leaders preparing for war. When the recording ended, Federation President Adesina broke the silence. The Confederation ambassador to Alpha Centauri claims this was a regrettable cultural misunderstanding. They expect our immediate surrender and acceptance of vassal status. Their warship deployments near our borders are broadcasting terms of submission, added Defense Minister Takahashi. They've given us 72 hours to acknowledge Confederation authority. General Volkov of the Eurasian Coalition slammed his fist on the table. We should deploy everything we have. Show them humanity won't be intimidated. Admiral Zhao remained standing, her calm at odds with the emotional current in the room. That's exactly what they expect, an emotional, disorganized response from a primitive species, an excuse to eliminate us entirely. She activated her security clearance, transforming the room's holographic display. The familiar image of Earth's modest defense fleet vanished, replaced by something entirely different, a vast array of military vessels hidden throughout the solar system. Project Pantheon was initiated 35 years ago, Zhao explained as stunned council members absorbed the revelation. When our first deep space probes encountered Confederation territory, we understood the potential threat. Every public vessel, every civilian advancement has had a military parallel developed in secret. The display shifted again, showing stealth ships disguised as asteroids, massive weapon platforms concealed within mining operations, and advanced warships hidden inside what the public believed were corporate space stations. We have vessels with phase shift technology reverse-engineered from salvaged Confederation craft. Zhao continued. Quantum disruption weapons, adaptive combat systems that operate beyond the predictive capabilities of Confederation tactical analysis. She inserted Reed's data core into the central console. And now, thanks to Captain Chen's foresight, we have this: complete schematics of their defensive networks, command protocols, and communication vulnerabilities. Sarah didn't just die for us. She armed us. President Adesina studied the tactical displays with growing comprehension. "What are you proposing, Admiral?" "Operation Starfall," Zhao replied, expanding the star map to show Confederation territory. "We go dark. Completely dark. Shut down all transmissions. Recall all human vessels from alien space. Let them think we're cowering in fear." Reed, despite his injuries, stood to join her at the display. Meanwhile, our stealth fleet deploys throughout their territory, mapping targets, placing quantum disruptors at key nodes. When we strike, we hit critical infrastructure simultaneously across 50 light-years of space before they realize we're capable of such coordination. "The Confederation has ruled through fear for millennia," Zhao concluded. "They've forgotten what it means to face an enemy with nothing to lose." The Council voted unanimously. Within 6 hours, Earth went silent. All communication with Confederation worlds ceased. Civilian vessels were quietly recalled under communications blackout protocols. At the Alpha Centauri outpost, the Confederation ambassador smiled thinly as human communications fell silent. His report to the High Council was triumphant. The primitives retreat in fear, as expected. Beneath Olympus Station, the first wave of stealth vessels slipped away from their docking cradles, their phase shift drives leaving no trace as they accelerated toward Confederation space. Operation Starfall had begun. Commander Reed's stealth vessel, the UEF Nemesis, drifted silently above the Confederation outpost on Deneb Vii. Through the viewport, the massive installation sprawled across the moon's cratered surface, its quantum communication spires reaching toward the stars. "Orbital defense grid mapped and analyzed," reported Lieutenant Santos, her fingers dancing across the tactical interface. "Shields cycle every 27.3 seconds, creating a 0.8-second vulnerability we can exploit." Reed studied the holographic display of the outpost. 6 months of silent observation had transformed him. The plasma burns had healed, but a coldness had settled in his eyes. The look of a man who had watched his friend die and was finally positioned to respond. "Deployment status of the other strike teams?" he asked. "All 23 teams report ready," his XO confirmed. "Synchronized strikes will commence on your mark across all targeted outposts." Reed nodded, checking the chronometer. Earth had maintained total communication silence for half a standard year. The Confederation, believing humanity cowed into submission, had grown complacent. Their border patrols had thinned, their alert status downgraded. "Commence Operation Starfall," Reed ordered. Across 24 strategic outposts spanning a vast swath of Confederation space, human stealth vessels simultaneously decloaked and executed precision strikes, not with overwhelming firepower, but with surgical accuracy born of months of patient observation. The Nemesis dropped through Deneb's defense grid during the brief shield cycling window, deploying specialized infiltration pods to key access points. Reed led the primary strike team himself, phase shift armor rendering them nearly invisible to internal sensors. Inside the outpost's command center, Sub-Counselor Vale was enjoying refreshments with his officers. The latest reports from the Sol system indicate the humans remain isolated in their home system, exactly as predicted by Confederation strategic models. Their behavioral patterns align perfectly with other Class 3 species when confronted with superior force. Vale commented, his upper appendages manipulating a drinking vessel. The High Counselor was correct to make a public example of their ambassador. The first indication that something was wrong came when the primary communication array went silent. Then the secondary. Then the emergency backup, in rapid succession. Critical systems throughout the facility began shutting down, not from catastrophic failure, but from precise, coordinated sabotage. When security teams rushed to restore the quantum communication hub, they found nothing but empty corridors and silent equipment. By the time Vale realized they were under attack, Reed's team had already secured the command center, neutralizing resistance with non-lethal neural disruptors. "Impossible," Vale gasped as Reed removed his phase shift helmet. "Your species lacks the technological capability for this level of coordination." "A common misconception," Reed replied, securing the alien with restraints. Humanit. Across Confederation space, the pattern repeated. Critical communication nodes, power generation facilities, and defense coordination centers fell in perfectly synchronized operations, not through brute force, but through meticulous planning and exploitation of vulnerabilities documented in Chen's neural download. On the Confederation capital world of Nova Prime, High Counselor Zelvin was awakened from his regeneration cycle by frantic aides. The holographic displays surrounding his chamber showed cascading system failures across a quarter of Confederation territory. Impossible, Zelvin hissed, his mercurial form rippling with agitation. The humans couldn't possibly. His words were cut short as the central communication spire visible through his chamber window suddenly went dark. Then the city grid. Then the planetary defense network. Systematically, deliberately, the technological foundations of Confederation power were being dismantled. When the humans finally broke their silence, it wasn't with a message of warfare or retribution. Instead, every remaining communication system throughout Confederation space simultaneously displayed a single image. Captain Sarah Chen, standing proud in her Federation uniform, backed by stars. The accompanying message was simple. The Confederation made a critical error in their strategic assessment. Humanity doesn't seek conquest or destruction. We seek recognition. You will find your remaining operational systems sufficient for basic governance and civilian needs. Your military capabilities, however, have been neutralized. 3 days later, a single human diplomatic vessel entered orbit around Nova Prime. Admiral Zhao herself led the delegation to the Confederation Council chamber, now humbled and operating on emergency power. You've demonstrated unexpected capability, Zelvin admitted, his once imposing form now diminished. The Confederation acknowledges its miscalculation. Humanity doesn't seek dominance, Zhao replied, taking the same position where Captain Chen had stood months earlier. But we will not accept subjugation. Our proposal is simple, a new galactic charter. Equal representation, mutual defense, technological exchange, the end of hierarchical species classification. She activated a holographic display showing the proposed restructuring of galactic governance. Captain Chen believed cooperation was possible. Her death will not have been in vain. As the details of the new charter were presented, several Confederation races openly supported the human proposal, species that had long chafed under the rigid hierarchy but lacked the means to challenge it. Within a year, the Galactic Confederation became the Interstellar Alliance, with humanity taking its place as an equal member despite its relatively small territory. The assassination that was meant to subjugate humanity instead triggered a fundamental restructuring of galactic power, not through overwhelming destruction, but through precision, planning, and the strategic application of force. On the anniversary of the signing of the new charter, a memorial was unveiled in the reconstructed council chamber. A simple holographic flame that burned continually beside an inscription in multiple languages. In memory of Captain Sarah Chen, who gave her life in pursuit of peace and whose sacrifice transformed a galaxy. The stars continued their eternal dance, but the species that lived among them had learned a crucial lesson. Underestimate humanity at your peril.